Will people who choose not to be vaccinated be afforded the same mobility freedoms as those who do? And what about the workplace? To answer some of these questions, we are joined by disability lawyer Nainesh Kotak from Kotak Law. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Can you see vaccinations becoming a condition of employment? Is that possible?
I think so too. It really depends on the type of employment. If we're talking about, an office setting where people can sit very far apart and customers don't come in and out, or people have the option from working at home, I think the employer would be hard pressed to make that as a condition of employment. But on the other hand, if we're dealing with a workplace that's healthcare, for example, or where customers come in and out, or an entertainment place where people are in and out, I can readily see that being a condition of employment, and likely, I would suggest, enforceable. There may be some exceptions if there are people who have autoimmune disorders, just for example, or pre-existing conditions that actually prevent them from taking vaccines. Then there could be a human rights issue if they're subjected or forced to lose their job, for example, if they don't have a vaccine. Other than that, I think it really depends on the place of employment. We will probably see a fair bit of discussion about this, but I truly see it's going to be happening. A year or so ago, we would never imagine a place of employment where they take your temperature for your employees before they go in. We would look at that, is that an invasion of privacy? No longer. It's no longer that. It actually is a bona fide occupational requirement. And I truly think we're going to see that in many, many places of employment, and not just employment, in terms of entertainment and our social life as well.
And travel too, and we'll talk about that, but back to the workplace. Okay, so let's presume that's the case. What if there's an adverse reaction, or of course blood clots are in the news this week? Is that compensation as part of work, or how would that be navigated?
Right. So, if your question is if a person has an adverse reaction, their recourse, may well be with the vaccine maker or with our government. But in terms of, if let's say they've had one dose and they react and they can't have another dose, well, I think an employer would be hard fetched to suggest to them that no, you have to have a second dose, or you won't be able to work because they have a medical condition, a disability that would prevent them from taking that second dose, for example. And I think that there
wouldn't be any exposure or liability because the company had forced the employee to take the vaccine and then there was an adverse reaction.
Well, I don't think so. It's the causation issue, right? I mean, is it reasonably foreseeable? These adverse reactions are so remote. I don't think an employer would be held liable in those circumstances.
And there was actually there was liability protection that was came into effect in the fall, but there were some rules attached to that, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've had liability protection, different legislation that's come out in our province. Part of it was, it seems to protect the owners of long-term care homes or others who may have, made some errors at the beginning of the pandemic, really imposing a good faith, as long as they're acting in good faith, they won't be liable. So that's really restricted obvious recovery for some people who have been adversely affected by negligence during the pandemic.
Yeah, well, we appreciate your time this morning. We're going to link up your website, too, for more great information, Kotak Law. We'll link that at chch.com. Good to see you again, Nainesh Kotak.
Good to see you. Thank you for having me.